Raiders, we have a phenomenal show for you today, and we have a fantastic guest. Ivan Alvarez is a master coach and trainer in the personal development industry. He is a literal man on a mission. Now, he did not even migrate to the U.S. until 1974, and when he arrived at 7 years of age, he didn't even speak any English. Admittedly, he came from a tough home life with physical and mental abuse, but he decided he was not going to follow in those footsteps. He was going to literally change all of that and create a positive impact in his life and everyone around him and the lives of those he touched, and he is doing exactly that today. Now, for the last 12 years, he has helped, coached, and trained over 6,000 students. Ivan, welcome to the show, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Kirk. I'm so honored.
Glad you're here. You know, the little I've gotten to know you and listen to you, I have become, you know, there's certain people in life that they seem to be tailored to what they're doing. And when I've watched some of your stuff and I've listened to you, you have what I would refer to as sort of the kid gloves treatment, you know, that bedside manner, that doctor's bedside manner about your voice and your tone and the way you sort of just approach the interaction when you're trying to coach somebody or ask them specific questions without being too prying, but yet at the same time, getting to the results for them to help them. And I think you literally have found your mission and your purpose and calling in the way of helping people. I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. But quickly, before we get into the meat of this, though, I would like to just have you, if you would not spend too much time on it, but just to kind of paint a little bit of a picture of what your home life was like, where you came from, and what that experience was, just for a few moments, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, I was born in La Ceiba, Honduras, which is Central America, third world country, very, very poor. Was born there in 1968. And I'm going to show you kind of what the house looked like that I grew up in.
Oh, wonderful. You have, yeah, I'd like to see that.
So this is kind of what the house looked like. As you can see, it's made out of red clay, or what we would call mud. And in that house, there was no electricity, there was no running water. And you want to talk about extreme poverty. For us to be able to have food, we normally would go and get a block of ice, put it in the cast iron tub, and then we'd put whatever food we were going to eat for that day around that block of ice until it melted. The bathroom was an outhouse. Some of my best friends were mice that came out of the field, because that's all I had to speak with whenever my parents were out working and doing their thing. So I came from that extreme poverty, and my parents, when they came to the US, this was the house that I actually grew up in. And this was in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
What's really funny, Kirk, is that I always love to share this story with people. When I came to the US, because people that look like me in Honduras all speak Spanish, I automatically assumed that African Americans here spoke Spanish as well. Can you imagine that? So here I am approaching African Americans here, talking Spanish, and they're looking at me like, "What the heck are you saying, kid?" And I'm like, "Do you not understand what I'm telling you?" So that was my childhood, and like you were saying at the very beginning of this, very, very rough childhood. I did not get a chance to really be a kid because my parents' marriage was extremely rocky. There was a lot of verbal and physical just fighting among them, like every 2 weeks at least. And I felt like I had to be the adult in that manner. I had a brother and a sister, both younger, and I wanted to protect my brother and sister. So a lot of those fights.
So if I could just ask, when did those sort of feelings and thoughts come up in a child's mind that you had to protect your brother and sister? I mean, I suppose some of that's innate, some of it's nature, but when did you notice that you started feeling some of those directives inside of you?
Well, when I was receiving that abuse, when I was receiving the verbal abuse, and there are things that specifically my mother said to me that no human being, much less a child, should ever hear. Uh,
Mm.
as far as beatings, I mean, I was beat with closed fists. I remember having a pot of boiling beans thrown at me. I remember having chairs thrown at me. I remember being pushed into the scalding hot shower. And I know what that made me feel like. And I didn't want my brother and sister to have to go through that.
Sure, sure. Well, let me ask you this then. How or how does or did you break out of that? Because there had to be some tipping point, or maybe it was later in life, but how is it that so many of the things that we do, people have a tendency that it gets set in their subconscious, what Bob Proctor refers to as your paradigm, which is a group of many habits that are in your subconscious mind. And in most cases, and welfare third and fourth and fifth generation has proven this, the children will act out what they've been exampled, shown, and experienced. What was it about you that broke out of that? How did you do it?
I can tell you exactly how old I was and what occurred. I was about 14 years old. And I remember my father, for whatever reason, this one day, he was hitting me with a belt. And so much rage rose up inside of me saying, this is wrong. And as he was hitting me, I never yelled, I never cried. I just stared at him. And it was the first time in my life that I actually saw my father have a sense of fear from a 14-year-old kid. And at that moment in time, I said, I will never, ever become what these two people are. And if I ever get married, if I ever have a family, I will never put them through the things that I had to endure.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And so I was interviewing Peggy McCall, who I think you know her as, New York Times multiple bestseller. She had a moment in her life when she was walking in a street in Toronto where she had similar circumstances, obviously not anywhere near your circumstance, but bad by the US standards or the Canadian standards. And she had a moment where she had decided. And so it sounds like you had one. Obviously, yours was a little more extreme in how you arrived there. So thank you for sharing that. And I know some it's probably a little painful to share. So what is your intention now? What is your current mission? What is your goal for and the hope for the people that you work with, that you coach, and you're guiding and leading to their next possible potential? What's your intention?
I'm so glad you asked that. So 12 years ago when I started coaching, one of the things that I decided right there and then is that I would never, ever leave anyone that ever came in my vicinity the way I found them. I would always leave people better. And that literally put a very, very specific skill set in my heart to always ensure that I look for and I extract the best out of people. One of the things that I've seen, Kirk, after having coached well over 6,000 people, is most people never ever find out their true worth in this life. And to me, that is a sad state of affairs. I have a very strong suspicion that is why our world is what it is today.
But let me ask you, how and why is it like that? Why has it got to be like that? Why is it that more people, I mean, I've read the statistics, 2 or 3% make 96% of the money. We don't want to make this about money, but if you don't think some things are about money, try not to live on it for 30 days. I always tell somebody, says, it's always about the money. Well, it's not about the money, but it is a component of our lives. We don't go to the store without it. We don't go in our car without it. We don't buy boards for that fence behind you without it. So it's unfortunately part of it. How is it that so many people do not wake up to another possible potential? What do you think that is?
So you're going to hear from a perspective of someone that came from a different country. One of the first things I noticed when I came to the US, even at the age of 7, is people here in the United States take things for granted. The reason why is they were born into it. Poverty in my home country versus poverty here, night and day difference. And as a result of that, I think people become callous, literally, as if you're working out, and after a certain point, you get calluses on your hand and you don't even realize or recognize it's there. And I think that's the first thing. People take for granted what they have and they become callous, literally callous. Second reason is it's just the way that this country programs their citizens has a lot to do with it. You look at the media, you look at music, you look at the school system. Everything about this society literally programs people to become employees and to literally live that type of lifestyle until they die. And I have a feeling that people are no longer even thinking for themselves anymore. They're on a program and they run this program every single day, because I hear the same complaints from the same people, not days, not weeks, not even months apart, but years.
So I hear master coaches, and I literally, even though you're not on Instagram everywhere like Tony Robbins is, I do classify you as a master coach and trainer, because I do believe, the little research I've done on you, that you do have a deep understanding of the mind. And then we know the mind and the brain are not necessarily the same thing, and that's another topic. But being that I esteem you to that level, and I truly do, what then, when you sit with a person, because I've heard some of the masters talk about this, Bob and the Brian Dalmasso, who you know, and Bob Proctor and Tony Robbins and some of the people, they'll talk about when they are working with somebody, they're holding an intention of hope of how they see what that person can bust through into for themselves. What is your intention or hope for someone when you're trying to work with them?
For me, I want people to understand and realize that their greatness that they have not stepped into, it's bigger than them. We don't realize the impact of the things that we do in the lives that we touch, and how far it reverberates beyond that person that we talk to. And I think that's where a lot of people are missing the boat. They think it's about themselves. I have to get every single person that I talk to understand and realize it's not just about them. It's actually bigger than them. It's about the impact that they're supposed to make. Here's a real clear point so that you understand kind of where I'm coming from. Every single one of us has a unique DNA. Every single one of us. Our DNA never existed before we came onto this earth. No one currently has it, and no one ever will. That makes us unique. That basically means that the people that you're able to reach, you're able to impact, are not the same people that I will be impacting. Does that make sense? So because
it does.
Unique DNA, there's a certain portion of the population that they were designed, created to impact. And if they don't ever step out of their normalcy, their little box, those people will never change. And the people they were supposed to impact will never change. So it has literally an effect far beyond that one person.
This is more of a philosophical question that can't be proven or disproven, but just to find out what your feeling is on it. Does everyone have a purpose?
Absolutely.
100%. And do you feel that is our reason, is to come and discover what that purpose is? Or how would you describe that? I mean, I've heard it by some of the most brilliant minds be discussed of in opposite ways. What's your feeling? What's your viewpoint on that?
So if you look at people that are driven, people that will never quit, people that will absolutely move mountains to accomplish their goals, it's because they understand and they recognize their purpose. They understand that it is bigger than them. So as a result of that, they take ownership of that. And what happens to you is, once you understand what that purpose is, you can't be the same person that you were before that. I'll give you an example. Let's say that for the sake of this, I love to just come home and watch TV after I've done whatever I've been doing. And I just veg out in front of the TV every day for 5, 6, 7 hours. Then, I go to bed, and then I start my day all over again. When I recognize and realize my purpose, I can no longer come home and sit in front of that TV, even if I wanted to.
Right. Yeah, Oprah said, your real job in life, I'm going to think how that went. Your real job in life is something, I'm going to ad lib, I might be butchering it slightly, but it was, your real job in life is to figure out what it is you're called to do and use your job while you're figuring out what that calling is. Something like that. In other words, nothing wrong with the job. We have to have them. And by the way, I'm very thankful that there's someone at the market when I go down to buy my groceries. So that's why I always look at that a little funny too, because I think, you know, everybody can't be changing the world, but yet everybody can change their little world, and they can do it with kindness, can't they? And they can do it with a good help and support and lending a hand and offering when someone says, how's your day? You know, answer honestly, and then ask how their day is and really care and listen. That's something there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So Oprah, the other thing she said, and it's kind of what you just said, and I just wanted to know what your opinion of it was. She said when she retired that she noticed a forming question that people, or a statement that would people come up to her and say anywhere when she was at. She said just some woman would come up and say, you know what I really loved about you was that you were always yourself. And the fact that you was so committed to just being yourself, whether it was a little overweight or whatever it was, made it okay that I could be myself. So I thought that was interesting, you know. But what do you hope when you meet a beautiful soul that's saying to you, Alvin, I want you to help with this, and just if we could try to move the chains, as it were, in my life to maybe affect this area or my relationship or my health or my finances. When they come to you and they ask you that question, how do you begin that process? Do you have a process that you go through, like some things you might ask them?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first things is that I read energy. I think it's a gifting where I can feel the energy of that person. The second thing that I have an innate ability to do is, for whatever reason, I can see the greatness that that person can't see. So one of the first things I do is I say to them, hey, do you mind if I share something with you that's really, really personal? And they're like, absolutely. And then I tell them, I describe to them who I see them being, not in the current physical form, but almost in a spiritual sense. And I say, this is what I see in you. I see masses of people coming to look for you for guidance, for understanding, for just a listening ear. So I literally tell them what it is that I see in them before they even know it's in themselves. And I've noticed that people will start getting emotional, and they're like, yeah, this person that's told that to me.
I'm sure.
So
I'm sure.
First process. The second one is I always ask them the question, if you could have life exactly the way you want it to be, what would that look like, and why are you not pursuing it? Tough question.
Tough question. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times it comes down to, I don't believe I can have it. So if I think about it, it hurts. Absolutely. And that's some of the case. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about bringing people to the reality that if I can come from a third world country and have the success that I've had, which I didn't even show you. So that was the house that I grew up in.
I was going to ask if that's where you live currently. And I'm thinking that's not where you live currently, because I think I've seen your streets in one of your videos. That I've seen. Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful.
So this is, I want to make sure people understand this. I do not have a formal education, don't have a degree. I'm ex-military. I've actually been able to accomplish things that I've been told all my life, there's no way you can do that. I became a systems engineer for IBM without a degree.
Interesting. Wow.
So
isn't that interesting?
I want people to not just hear it, but know that I am the example, that nothing is impossible, that everything that they truly desire, if they go for it, it's not just possible, it's probable. It's probably going to have it, but they have to go after it. It's not just going to come to them.
And you have designed sort of a program, a community where you invite students in, you work and coach with them, and literally you don't hold their hand, but you do offer very interactive instruction along the way to help them to that end. Absolutely. And I think that's a neat thing, because so many of these things are seminar based, where you'll go for the weekend, and then based on what we know about the paradigm, when you could rip the roof off the house on Monday, but by Thursday it's about like it was before you went, right? And that's the paradigm being itself again, which is the repetition of all the habits coming out, and then due to lack of understanding that and improper interaction with changing that, we become what we were again. Yes. And so you have methods and really literally like mental technologies, if you will, to help without using electric probes, but ideas and concepts to help people make those changes that last, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So here's a switching gears, because I'm sure you hear different things. What do you love that people say about you? When do you know that you're really clicking with them when they say certain things about you that's revealing the truth back to yourself? What do you love that people say about you?
The first thing is the smile. People always remember my smile for obvious reasons. And the second thing is they also tell me that no one has ever taken the time to listen, actively listen to what they had to say. And the reason for that is I usually repeat back what people say to ensure that I understood it properly. And then the last thing is very few people are ever taken through an exercise where they can see now their greatness and begin to extract that out, not allow it to continually be covered up. Get off of that and literally start to walk into who they were created and designed to be. Those are probably the things that most people say about me that I truly, truly appreciate.
Yeah, and I think both of those are spot on. I feel both of those things when I've talked to you, interacted with you. Yeah, the smile's obvious, and yeah, that's why I said you have that bedside manner, that soft. It makes you want to just share with you because you're so trustworthy. It's how it feels to you when you're talking with you. So, okay, what do you see the next 10 years being for you? Where do you see yourself? How do you see yourself making an impact? With whom, how, and where?
For me, Kirk, at the heart of who I am, there's an orphanage that I've been associated with in my home country of Honduras for many, many years now, since 2003. And to be able to grow that orphanage, to get more kids off the street and fully fund that would be a dream come true for me. I know what those children are going through. I've seen it. I've actually spoken with them. And my mission over the next 10 years is to not only fully fund that orphanage, but to grow it. The current orphanage has 50 boys. I want to be able to have 75 boys on one side, 75 girls on the other side, a nice little common area in the middle, and be able to fully fund everything that they need every single month so that they never have to worry about that. And then I believe that there's many other places that I'm going to go to, and I will do the exact same thing. I will raise up orphanages, get as many kids off of the street, to give them an opportunity, give them a chance to become who they were created to be so that they can impact the world. And the way I'm going to go about doing that is helping people like those viewers right now that are listening to change your life. It has to start somewhere. If I can make an impact in your life, if I can get you to understand, we need the very best version of you, not tomorrow, not next week, right now.
We need the best version of them for themselves, for their children, for society as a whole, for the collective. I mean, it's requirement, but yet it's not known that it's a requirement for a healthy population, communities, additions, counties, cities. It really is, isn't it, that we become the best we can be. And I think that the self-help, the personal development industry that you are in, I think is one of the most underappreciated industries, because you're coming up to someone that if you ask them, they know they need to change. They want to change. You offer the solution and the answer, and they say, I'm going to change. And then nothing happens. So it's almost a thankless position of it's almost painful for you, I suppose. I've heard that where you pour yourself so much. I've heard Brian say and different people say you pour your heart out into these coaches. You want them to literally transform to whatever they want to be. And you almost, if you're not careful, you can almost get heartbroken that they just don't take action. How do you insulate from that? How do you protect yourself from that? Or how do you keep going, I should say, when the majority of folks that want it, say they want it, need it, and then start to take the first step, stop going?
So let me answer that question this way, Kirk. The first thing is that I've recognized that there's a financial sickness in our world right now. There's a lot of people that are financially sick. And for a lot of these people, because they are not doing what's necessary to get out of that sickness, it's going to eventually become a disease, an incurable disease that's going to take their lives. With that being said, and understanding that from my perspective, I have to educate, I have to coach, I have to teach as many people as I possibly can. And one of the things I've come to the realization is I am not responsible for how they receive it. It's just my duty. It's my requirement.
Okay.
That is how I shield myself.
I see. But you do feel called to do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are days that it's harder than others because when I see truly the potential, and maybe there's one person that stands out above all the other ones, and I truly see that potential. And I had that happen to me, believe it or not, at a Ray Higdon event. And I poured my heart into this guy for almost an hour. And at the end of that,
yeah, it hurts, doesn't it? When you pour yourself into them, yeah, it's hard to separate it.
Yeah, he said he basically quit, and it took me 20 minutes to recover from that.
Yeah, I bet. And, anyone that has ever tried to help someone, you do emotionally get connected to them. It's a natural aspect of humanity. We're here to love. We're here to share. We're here to help. And we're here to leave everyone better off than we found them. Now, most of us don't do that. And I've had decades of not doing that. And thank God I have aligned with human beings that are on purpose for the right reasons, heading in the right direction. And I'm thankful for that every day. But I will say that, I admire you. I cheer you on. I wish you to keep going in the fight of it. And it's not that it's all so horrible, but it is painful when you're trying to help someone that wants help, but they themselves cannot understand why they want to do something, but they can't take the action. It's painful for both parties. Yeah. And again, all you can do is encourage and go forward and support in the best possible way that you can.
100%.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If today was Ivan's last day, okay? There's a scene in the Johnny Cash movie where he says to the guy, if you were hit by a truck, you were dying out there in the gutter, and you had one song to sing, what would you want to tell the world your time meant while you were here? What would you want to tell the world that your time meant while you were here?
Wow, that's a powerful question. For me, it's that I never gave up on anybody. I saw the best in everybody, and that I truly wanted them to have the best life possible, because I understand how the consequences of not having that best life reverberates.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to know that even for those that have never taken me up on coaching, knowing good and well that they should have, from the heart. It's never about money for me when I coach people. It's always been about the impact. It's always been about changing. It's always been about giving them the very best of myself so that we could have, what I mean by we, the world could have the very best of them.
That's good. And I know that you're doing some other programs with Brian and different things that you're trying to, I think you and Brian Dalmaso's hearts have aligned, as well as many others, that this concept, nobody gets left behind. And I love that he come up with that, because, you know, some of these coaching programs, you'll hear Tony say, well, I'm $1 million a day and I'll work with you once and we'll get changes. Okay, that's great. What if my car don't start and I don't know how I'm going to tell my child I can't feed him tonight? And you're telling me you want me to take your coaching? And then Brian, he literally said, well, the answer to that is nobody gets left behind. Can you come up with 67 cents a day, right? And he's like, go collect cans and you can start to change. We have made it to where it's impossible to not take the first step. And if you're willing to take the first step, we'll take it with you. And I love that. And I know you're a part of that. So you guys are doing great, fantastic work with that. And, you know, congratulations to all of you for that. So let me ask you this then. 40 years from now, maybe you're still here, maybe you're not, but Courtney and Brittany are sitting around with some friends. Maybe they're at someone's house and they're just sitting around a fire, and it's kind of that reminiscent mood, and they're talking about the old times and their lives and everything. And you come up and they start talking about you, and they start sharing, and the friends ask them, you know, something about you. What do you hope that the girls thought and felt about you, the example you set, and what you showed them about how to live this life?
Wow. Number one, that I love them, and I said it to them all the time, because I never heard those words come out of my parents' mouths. Number two is that I always saw the greatness in each one of them, and I did everything I could to extract it so that they could live the lifestyle that they can only dream of. Number three is that I respected them enough to live their lives and not try and finagle it to make it what I wanted it to be. And number four, and this is probably to me just the most important one, is he made an impact on so many orphans that Honduras is no longer the same.
Whew. Yeah, that's heavy. I mean, you're getting right to the heart of all of it, to the purpose and reason we exist here, brother. That's heavy. That's heavy and beautiful sentiment. I'm sure the little that I know you and the little I've watched you and have heard you interact, I believe they will say those things. I really do. Well, you know, it's been fun, and I appreciate what you've shared today. You're a great man, and I hope that the people that you work with and you reach out to are open to trying what you have to offer, because I know it works. It's changed my life, and I know that you've changed many lives, and it's changed your life. So my hope and prayer for you is that the folks that you try to impact, you try to help, actually take you up on it. That's my hope for you. But I do got one more question before you go. And, you know, I know your heart, and I know that I know for sure that the orphanage is near and dear to your heart, and it's deep. Let's just pretend for a moment that the phone rings a few years from now, and it's the director of the orphanage. And he says, Ivan, we have received some donations in your honor, and we're wanting to erect a marble statue of you. And it's going to go right in the courtyard. And they tell us this thing is going to last 1,000 years. 1,000 years. The tens of thousands of children that will come and go and read the words on the statue. We've got a little area for an epitaph. What do you hope to say to every child that walks up and sees that statue of you? What message do you want to give to them to take with them into their lives?
Even though someone gave up on you, maybe it was your parents, maybe it was the guardian, you matter. You matter. Make a difference. And even though they may have given up on you, I never did.
That's beautiful. And I didn't mean to take this so emotional. You got me a little choked up, brother, because these are heavy topics when we talk about our kids, our lives, people we're trying to pour our hearts into, the things we're trying to do to help mankind, put our best foot forward in the name of leaving people better off than we found them. But I'll tell you, I want to thank you for letting us come into your life for a little bit today and kind of look behind the iron curtain and share some of that with us. And we do appreciate you doing that. So
thank you.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! Ivan Alvarez, a man on a mission, and we are going to look forward to watching him do some of these incredible gestures for humanity and the people he works with and the Honduras orphanages and all of these things. Ivan, will you come back on another time and update us as time goes on?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. And there he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Ivan Alvarez. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. I'm Kirk Wayne.